So, welcome to the next in our online messages brought to you by the folks at the Raleigh Congregational Church. This is Reverend Tom Bentley, the pastor. We're hoping that your life journey is going all right, particularly during these times of challenging circumstances. If you'd like to know more about the Raleigh Congregational Church and its ministry, there'll be a little bit of information at the end of this video. So, peace and best wishes. So grace to you and peace from Jesus. It's April time in New England. I like to get away, and I like to go with my wife up to Portland, Maine, a beautiful little city on the coast, Casco Bay, Maine. There's a lot of things to see in Portland, particularly its art museum, the Portland Museum of Art. Art museums were hit really hard in this time of COVID, and so folks at the art museum here put out an interesting invitation to artists in the region. Produce a piece of art that speaks to us in this time of COVID. This resulted in a very interesting showing called 2020, Art from Maine in a Blank Time. You fill in the space. A crazy time, a troubling time, a deadly time, a depressing time. It's been a tough time. Touring this display of interesting expressions, I remembered again the words of Ezra Pound, who said that artists are the antennae of society. These folks are picking up where we're at. I came to a display of what seemed to be a red piece of glass just sitting on the wall. But as you walked up to the piece of glass, all the confusion that was on the wall suddenly broke into a text, and it said, "America, where my right to do whatever I want, however I want, whenever I want, is more important than your right to live." And the artist's name is Rachel Church. The title of the work is Seeing Red, number 2, and it's part of the Untitled 2020 Art from Maine in a Blank Time. Thinking of the name, I realized Rachel is the woman who cried out for her children in their death. And church is that word that comes through Greek ecclesia, which is to shout out. Rachel is shouting out the death of her children. And this is what's killing us. This point of view about the world, which is the height of corrupt idolatry, the idolatry of self. When we embrace this condition, we become crippled. And so we are as a nation, a society, and often even as a small church. If folks are pursuing only what they consider their personal best interest at the expense of everyone else, then we'll fall apart as a community. We'll fall apart, and as a body we will die. We'll die as a planet, we'll die as a human race, we'll die as community, we'll just simply die, we'll be crippled, and Rachel will cry for us in our death. But that is not what Jesus promises. The author of that first letter of John reminds us of a critical understanding of how we engage what we need to do to be in the work and the security of God. He writes, "My dear children, let's not just talk about love, let's practice real love. This is the only way we'll know we're living truly, living in God's reality. It is also the way to shut down debilitating self-criticism, even when there is something to it. For God is greater than our worried hearts and knows more about us than we do ourselves." Thank God, God is greater than our worried hearts. Our survival is in the love that comes to us through our divine Creator, and we can participate in directly through Jesus, our friend, our guide. In the Gospel of John, in the 10th chapter, Jesus identifies himself as the Good Shepherd. And he promises that by his love, he will guide us as the shepherd guides the sheep, because the sheep know his voice. We need to listen to the voice of Jesus, however that voice comes to us. And it does not encourage us to do whatever we want, whenever we want, to whomever we want, even to the point of their death. This social ethic of corrupt, self-centered self-worship is really a defense against what is in truth behind it, which is a sense of self-loathing and a sense of insecurity. Our worried hearts, yes, we have them. In this time of strain and stress, in this time of risk and problem, we have worried hearts. But the author of John says, look, follow the love and do that love. And in that comes an understanding. In that comes a wholeness. In that comes a security. In that comes something that triumphs over even this painful self-criticism. For God is greater than our worried hearts and knows more about us than we do ourselves. So I invite you to trust in the Good Shepherd and listen to that voice. We can call the voice of Jesus, but we always find his voice in the voice of love. Loving our neighbor as ourselves, loving our neighbor and doing unto our neighbor what that neighbor needs is what we need for ourselves. That's the reverse of the dark times we're in. That brings some title to this untitled time where we'll no longer see through a glass darkly. That dark of redness or even darker color will be transformed to a clear vision, a vision where we see each other in one another and we can be in love with one another through the love of Jesus. That will heal us. Don't worry. Let not your hearts be troubled, Jesus. Believe also in me. In my Father's heart, it's really what he says. In my Father's heart there are many spaces, and each space is for one of you. Can you get into the heart of Jesus? That love he promises. If you can, then all good things necessary for your well-being will come to pass. In his name, amen. So thank you for spending time with us. If you'd like to know more about the First Congregational Church of Rowley, you can go online at firstchurchrowley.org. And of course, we'd always love to hear from you. Please call us anytime at 978-948-3993. So again, wishing you the best in your life journey. Thank you and goodbye.